Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I wanted to walk through 8th Wall's website with you a little bit. I want to show you how to create an account on 8th Wall. As well, I wanted to show you how to start a new Niantic Studio project. And then finally, I want to show you how to clone a Niantic Studio project as well. There's a lot of information on the site. It can be very overwhelming and it can be kind of confusing when you're starting out for the first time. And I want to make sure that you have the tools and the resources that you need to be able to jump in and start creating. So, without further ado, let's jump into their website. This is the homepage of eighthwall.com. You can see there's a lot of different projects that are here. You can kind of see a bunch of stuff up top about like the solutions, the product. Um, there's a lot that you can do with Eighth Wall, and there's actually two tools inside of Eighth Wall that you can use. One of them is called Niantic Studio, and the other one is called the Eighth Wall Cloud Editor. Eighth Wall Cloud Editor is a paid tool, so you have to have a pro license to be able to use it. Whereas Niantic Studio is a free tool, and that's what we're going to be doing, and that's what all this create for free is right here. So I'm going to walk you through creating an account right now. It's actually very simple. I use Google for everything, so I'm just going to hit create for free. It's going to take me to this little page right here. We'll be greeted by my friend Alex. And then I'm just going to hit continue with Google. And then I'm going to sign into my declanxr@gmail.com account. And then agree to the terms and service. Finish. And then boom, we have a new workspace we're creating right now. You can name your workspace whatever you want. I'm going to name it Declan XR. Finish. Perfect. And then there are a couple different tutorials that we actually have access to right off the bat. You can jump straight into these. I'm not going to do that with you right now. I definitely would recommend checking them out. But I will actually show you how to get to those tutorials after this. So I'm going to hit skip. So this is the 8th Wall page. When you're logged in, this is kind of your landing page. Right here, you'll see sample projects, tutorials, and then news. If you have a project that you've been working in, it will appear up here. We don't have any projects yet, though, so they have the start your creative journey there. As well, we have documentation. So there are two different documentations because there are two different tools. We will not be using 8th Wall at all. This is not what we're going to be using today. We're going to be inside of Studio Beta. So this is all the documentation right now. There is a documentation overhaul that is being done, but the documentation is still very, very helpful. If you guys would like, I can create another video about the documentation, but I just want to show you where it is right now. And then let's see. Oh, it pops back up to this. This is actually really nice. Okay. Now we can go into the project library. And I believe this page might be changing in the next little bit. But these are kind of the templates that are available for us to clone inside of Niantic Studio. Anything that is Studio capable right now will be labeled with Studio right here. So any of these ones that say like A-Frame or 3JS, these are all for the cloud editor. These types of projects won't work for Studio. We're just going to be focused on the ones that, again, say Studio right here. Let's go back again. Okay. You can see product. This is where you can figure out like the pricing and stuff if you want to upgrade your account. We're not going to worry about that. And then resources. I believe this might be changing soon too. I'm not 100% sure, but you can find tutorials and blog posts in here right now. This is all about Cloud Editor though. Oh, actually, no, there is a Studio tutorial right here. So there are a couple of Studio resources in here now. But it's kind of confusing, so I would make sure that it says Niantic Studio in the title. If it says 8th Wall or 8th Wall Cloud Editor, I would not trust those tutorials. But if it says Niantic Studio, you can look at those tutorials to figure out content for the Niantic Studio. So just be very, very careful. There's not a lot of distinctions between the two different platforms in a lot of this right now, and that is why there's going to be a little bit of an overhaul of these resources. Okay, so now that we've kind of gone through the website a little bit, let's start a new project. So I'm going to hit start a new project. You might have a few menus and things that appear before you get to this scene, or maybe after the scene. I can't really remember exactly where, but those things are just going to have you set up your organization and finish that setup. I already did that, so don't be surprised if another window pops up at some point before we get to our scene. But I'm going to name this project right here just blank, and then this project URL is how people will find your project. Project title is the name that will be given to your project. Just so you know, your project URL can't be changed. Your project title can be changed. So make sure whenever you do your project URL, you're good to go with that and know that it's going to be that for the rest of the time that this project exists. But let's create this blank project. You can see right here we actually have the opportunity to clone different projects inside of the creation of a new project. So we can start with a world effect, VPS. We can see the eighth wall templates. These are all of the templates that are available for Niantic Studio. So we did look at that window earlier that had a bunch of projects in there, but this information as well is available here. Right now in here, if we hit one of these things, we can clone it directly. Inside of the other one, we were able to just kind of look at different things. So you can actually even try them out here. So let's say you wanted to try out the project, you could hit launch and play with it. But yeah, these are only Studio projects. So anything in this is something that you can trust is going to work inside of Studio. We also have this Hello World, this Hello VPS, and then another Hello World. Those three projects that it's been trying to get us to walk through, you can clone those in here as well. And then if you have projects that you've done in the past that you want to use as a starting point for your new project, you can go to My Projects right here and run them. So we're actually just right now going to start with this empty project though and clone that. Okay, we are now inside of a brand new blank Niantic Studio project. Before we mess with anything in here, I want to tell you what all of these menus on the sides are. So this menu right here that I'm on right now, this is what I would call the scene hierarchy. This is a textual representation of what is inside of the scene that we're seeing right now. This window down here is our file and asset and module section. So files are the different files that we can create. You just hit plus. You can create a new file, a new folder, or you can upload assets. Yeah, files are JavaScript, TypeScript, HTML, CSS, JSON, any type of web file that you would normally be able to use, you can use that type of file here. And then assets are things like your images, your 3D models, your audio, any type of asset that you want inside of your project will appear right here. Modules are pre-made chunks of code that you can use inside of a scene, inside of a project. There's not a ton of them that are available for Studio right now, so I usually don't bother with modules at all. So we might go over a tutorial about modules in the future, but for now, let's just not worry about modules. And then this right side, without clicking on anything in the scene, we can see our settings. So we have our skybox, we have our style, the main colors of the scene. We have play mode, which basically allows us to hit play in this, make changes, and those changes stay permanent. I'll show you the difference between live sync on and live sync off in a couple minutes. We have our source control, which allows us to create a new client, kind of like a new branch. We can revert our changes, abandon changes. We can see, the project's changes in our history. We have our input manager, which is pretty nice. I'll show you really quickly what input manager does. Essentially, we can create a map, and then we can type in the name of an input that we want to have, and we can add bindings to them. So like if you have a controller, you can say, I want the start button to be my jump button. You can add in, let's say you want a jump button to be an arrow key as well, and you want it to be your left arrow key. We could add in walk left. Save that, and then add in a binding for your mouse. And let's say you want to left click and it walks left. Like this is how you can create the control mechanisms of your game. Right now we don't need any of that, but it is a very, very nice thing to have. And then we can see our code editor styling right here. With the themes, the key binding. So if you're used to any of these, you can change kind of the shortcuts, and then the mini map and save. So these are kind of the basic windows and settings inside of Niantic Studio as soon as you log in. The two on the left stay constant. They don't change at all. The one on the right changes, kind of depending on what you're interacting with at the time. An example of that is if we click on this cube, this changes to show the components of the entity inside of our hierarchy window that we're selected. So this is a good time to talk about the entity component system inside of Niantic Studio. For those who don't know what entity component system is, the best way I like to think about it is everything over here on the left is a thing. Right? Every single object is a thing here. And a thing is made up of attributes or characteristics. In this case, they're called components that make them unique and special. So we have a couple of different things or entities in our hierarchy. Each one of these is an entity, technically, is what it's called. So we have an ambient light, we have a box, we have a camera, and then way high in the sky, we have a directional light. And we can't actually see it in our scene right now. Here's a little shortcut for you. If you click on something, go into the scene, hover there, and press F. It'll help us find the entity in the scene somewhere. So that's just a little shortcut. But now we can see our directional light. Let's say we want to go back to our box, click on it, press F, we're back in our box. But all of these different entities have components on them that make them what they are. They give them characteristics and give them like a way to visualize them. This box has a mesh, which is a box. We can change that mesh to make it into a cone. We can change it to make it into a circle. If we have a file, we can give it a model URL. When we add a file, this actually changes and appears with the specific GLBs that are in our assets. So it's really easy to change it to a GLB that we have. And then it has a material as well. We could change the color of this circle that we have right now. Let's change it back to a sphere. There. And we actually have wireframe on. That's why it looks like that. So we can see all the individual tries and lines and points inside of the primitive right here. So let's turn that back off. But yeah, so each of these entities have components, needless to say. We can create an entity with no components. That's an empty object right here. And then we can give it components. If we add the new component, we can give it an animation, we can give it lights, we can give it controls. Any of these built-in components we can add to an entity. But that's just kind of how entity and components work. So you have entities that are made up of components. And when we're writing code, a lot of the times we'll be creating new components, which are custom components that we can attach to entities. We're not going to worry about that right now. Right now, we're just kind of covering the basics of the scene and how to get started. So you can see we have a scene now with a sphere. Let's say we wanted to add in a cone. We can add in a cone as well. When we add in an object, it adds it to position 0, rotation 0, and scale of 0. It just adds it to the base of the scene and doesn't give it a position or anything. Let's say we want to move that cone. There are a couple ways we can do that. You can see these arrows that automatically pop up. If this is selected up here in the left corner, then these arrows will pop up, and this is one way to move those. We can drag these different arrows. If we drag the red one, that's our Z axis. We're moving it left and right. If we hit the green one, that's our Y axis. We're moving it up and down. Sorry, I don't know if I said X or Z, but this is our X axis. If I misspoke, please forgive me. But this is our X axis moving left and right. Our Z axis is front to back. So those are our three different directions. If you click on a little plane right here, it'll move in the directions, the two directions that the plane is connected to. So since this is connected to X and Z, we hit this plane and it moves in X and Z space. We hit this one, it moves in X and Y. So we can go up and down and left and right. That's how we can change two of these variables, or two of these, I guess, position elements at the same time. We can also go into our entity components over here on the right and manually change these. So if we wanted it to be back at 0, 0, 0, we can do that. So that's how we move stuff around. So I'm going to move the cone away. There are other buttons here, though. So if we hit this, we can now rotate it. Again, green is around our y-axis. You can't really see those changes. Oops. Let me fix that. I accidentally hit this yellow one, which moves it in multiple areas. All right, I might have hit the red, but green. So if we select green, that rotates it in the y-axis. We hit blue. Again, it's in the z-axis. If we hit red, it's in the x-axis. This yellow one kind of lets us move it freely in all of the axes. So that's how we rotate our object. Again, we can edit it directly here in the attributes of the entity or in the component section of the entity. And then we can change scale the same way. So I'm going to move the rotation back to 0, so it's just up and down. And now we can mess with the scale. Scale is the same exact thing. So let's click on it, click on our object, reset it. For some reason it was stuck. But yeah, we can now use this one to increase the X scale, Z scale, and Y scale. If we hit this yellow plane right here, it will increase our Y and X scale. If we hit this one, it will be our X and Z scale. And this one will be our Z and Y scale. And then this one will uniformly and proportionately scale everything. So just any of these little white blocks right here will proportionately scale the whole thing. Scale is the only one inside of our component window that's a little bit different than the position and rotation. If this is set to kind of have that line in the middle of this little oval, then it will proportionately scale everything together, just like if we hit this white cube. If this is unchecked, then we can hit Z and scale just the Z. We can scale just the Y. Or sorry, we can scale just the X. We can scale just the Y or just the Z. So I'm going to set all of this back to 1. So now we have the basic understanding of kind of the scene. We have an understanding of the windows. Let me add an asset in there. And I'll show you how to drag in an asset to see like a GLB inside of our file. So give me just 1 second. Okay, so now we have this wedge.glb inside of our project. GLBs are the easiest file type to use inside of Niantic Studio. You can use other things, but GLBs are kind of the web standard for 3D models right now. So I can click on this GLB and drag it into the scene, and then it'll appear. I'm going to rotate it. And then I can move it around. But like I told you, if we look at the mesh, this is the same mesh as what's on here. The only difference is now we have a GLTF model in there. So let's say we change it back to a plane and we want to change it to a GLTF model. We have our wedge.glb. If we didn't want to just drag the GLB in, we can hit wedge GLB and it will add in the wedge GLB for us. So that's pretty cool. You can see a GLB doesn't have a material because the material is inside of the GLB already. If we wanted to edit that material, we'd actually have to go and click on the GLB itself and look at this little window that is like a preview of an asset window now. You see this right one changed again. We can go into the material right here and we can edit the material with this. So we could change the texture. If we wanted to change the texture, we can change the base color. If we wanted it to be like more metallic, we could change all these values. But yeah, that's how we would change the material inside of a GLB that already exists. So now we kind of have been through a regular project. Hopefully that helps. Let me show you one more thing before we end this video. I want to show you how to clone a project from the project library. So let's say you're looking through the project library and you're just kind of browsing and you find something that you like Dragon Dash, which is a project that I made. When you open up a brand new project, you can see if it is clonable. You will see the file structure. You can actually click on these different things and see the code that's inside of the project. You can see a preview if the developer who made the project decided to put a preview in there. And then there'll be a README kind of telling you about the project itself. And then you can hit launch and play the game, or you can hit clone project. We're going to hit clone project, just name this dash, create it. And then it will create and duplicate this project in our own workspace. So now we can start playing with a project that already existed. And this will have a lot of the GLBs and files, and it'll have everything that's already inside of that project when it's on this page. We'll be able to see all of it. So now you can kind of see the structure of what like a more built out project is. You can see there's a lot of different entities inside of our project. There's a lot of different scripts. Something I didn't get to show you because we didn't have scripts in our blank project is the file editor right here. When you click on a file, it'll pull up this code editor, and we can go in here and write code. So that's very convenient. It's all built into Niantic Studio. So now that we have stuff inside the project, I can show you the simulator. So let me pull up the simulator. To do that, you just press play, and it'll pull up the simulator in our window. It's really convenient, and then it will show us how the project is going to run when it is launched. With this one, this is just kind of a Flappy Bird clone. That's what I built it to be. We can start. We can play the game. We can test things out. And then when we're done with it, we can just close it out. We can also connect devices. If you're working on an augmented reality project, you can scan the QR code. You can also hit new tab, and it'll open up in a new web environment. Let me mute this real fast because it's going to make noise. But yeah, to open up in a new web window, we can play the game. Again, we can test it. You can do a lot of the same things in the simulator as you can on here, but sometimes it's just nice to see it in an actual web window instead of just in a simulator. But all right, so now that we've kind of gone through the simulator, I want to show you kind of how to, I guess, push edits that we make to the project so that we can see them inside of the simulator. I want to show you how to land changes to a project and how to publish it. So really quickly, let's jump into the hierarchy, and I'm looking for this backdrop really fast. I'm going to move the backdrop. Actually, I'm just going to delete the backdrop. So let's find background and delete. So now we don't have a background. We have to build it. So we hit build, and it saves everything. So that's the most updated version. That's how we make changes so that they're reflected inside of this simulator right here. So now we just have a white background. So that's because we got rid of our background and we saved it and built the new version without a background here. Now, if we wanted that to be like the permanent version, we can land it. So building is like a temporary change. Landing it is when we push those changes and it becomes like the long-term version of it. Builds are for testing. Lands are for making changes that will stay persistent. Um, so something that you can do, I guess, before we land it, if we didn't like the changes that we made, we could go back to this revert to last build, and we can abandon changes, all project changes, and then it'll move everything back to how it was from our last land. Our last land in this case is just when we cloned the project. We haven't landed anything yet. But now let's say we want to delete this picture. We can now go to land and say removed background. Land files. And then it will go through the process of pushing those changes up into the cloud. So that is our last kind of save state. That's how I think of them. They're like save states in a video game. So builds is kind of your progression through the video game, but when you land it, you're hitting a save point. So now our most recent version of this is without a background. So if we wanted to abandon changes now, abandoning all project changes would just take us back to the last land. We don't have any changes right now, so we can't abandon changes. We like deleted this cloud by accident, and we're like, oh shoot, I need that cloud back. We can go to abandon changes, and it'll put that cloud back. And then publish is where we go when we want to create a public or a staging version of our project. Staging is something that people can access with a password, and public is something that is publicly. So, yeah, I mean, that covers the broad spectrum of what Studio is. If this was too much content, let me know. I kind of dove into it and got into the weeds with a lot of different things, but if you would like me to focus in on anything specific, let me know, and I can definitely do that. And yeah, I definitely appreciate you watching the video. I know that sometimes I might ramble a little bit, but I really want to help people learn about this awesome tool. It's free. I think that it is very valuable, and I think that you can do a lot of stuff with it. I've made 4 full feature games inside of this platform, so I definitely believe in it. But I hope that you find value in it as well. And if I can do anything to help you on your journey, please let me know, and please comment if you have any other videos that you would like. So, thank you, and have a good one.